Marisa Furtado and Pedro Lobão, a very, very warm welcome to Plantae Convivi's in Convivium interview series, and a warm welcome from the temperate rainforest zone of Northwest Europe. Now, where are you speaking from today? You're in a little bit more of an exotic location than Devon here in the UK.
Well, we are in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and we work with urban jackfruit trees situated in the state. And it's a historical legacy from the Portuguese, the colonization. So I would like to introduce the Instituto Mão na Jaca, the the company we
The
it's
organization we have.
yes, it's a non-profit organization, social, environmental social work. Okay, so I have a text for reading here next to me that I will read to you. Okay, Pete. The Instituto Mão na Jaca project begins with a relationship with the tree in the backyard, jackfruit tree. But in that backyard of my house, I also had a relationship with other trees that always taught me and welcomed me through my stay here. I see trees as a giving beings, and in general, we live among beings that are takers. Perhaps mobility is related to this, since the tree relates in a perfectly sustainable way to its territory. While humans consume the place and move to consume elsewhere, the tree remains in place through its existence, and with that, it has developed a self sustaining relationship with its territory.
Mm.
This relationship goes further because it exceeds, it is abundant, and it creates conditions that enhance the increase of its presence around, and it is also has its interaction with other living beings. Why not say with all the elements around that surrounds uh, it a pro-life interactivity, a perfect relationship, and a good recipe for our survival on planet.
Yeah, basically, I think we have this jackfruit tree in our yard, and Marisa always had this very strong relation with plants. And one day we said we cannot just let jackfruits spoil anymore. Not one, not even one. Should put that as a target for our action here in the house. And then we noticed that it was impossible to consume all the jackfruits when they are mature.
It was 400
Kilos.
kilos.
This jackfruit tree produces, it's the biggest arboric fruit, the jackfruit, no? You have watermelons on the ground and pumpkins, but hanging on trees, jackfruit is actually considered the biggest fruit. So when you start waiting them for mature, you have 400 kilos of fruit maturing at the same time. And it was impossible to consume and give some destiny to those fruits. So we discovered, because here in Brazil, we don't have the culture of unripe jackfruit, to consume unripe jackfruit. So we discovered this possibility, and we discovered that with this, we started pulling a thread that gave us a lot of insights on history and on the relations with plants in Brazil, actually the jackfruit tree. And then we started slowly noticing that this project was not our project. It was the jackfruit project that was teaching us how to behave to profit from all those fruits that she puts on every year. So it was for me a very challenging, in a personal way, discovery, because as an architect, I was used to deal with plants as like human furniture, like when you do a human project and you plant trees and put plants, and it's like another element in the city that you deal with complete dominance. And suddenly I was listening to a tree and learning from its abundance, from its potency, from its way of dealing with the environment where it is. So today, this jackfruit tree in our house is a bit of a sacred mama for us, that we don't even collect from it anymore. We let the fruits fall, and we do profit the fruits, but in a special way, in a particular way. But we started collecting from trees in the city, which then we'll talk about a bit more of history of how the jackfruit arrived here.
Yeah, thank you for those sharings. It's a wonderful story, and a little backstory for the audience that this story was brought to my attention by our mutual friend Jay here in Devon in the UK, and it really appealed to me because it's another example of human beings expressing their power through and with a particular plant being, rather than kind of seeking to control it. So it's a lovely example of that. And as you've mentioned, jackfruit is not native to Brazil, and you can say a little bit more about how it actually got to Brazil. But some people regard it as an invasive alien being in the forests around Rio in particular, but I'm sure elsewhere in Brazil. Perhaps you could say a little bit more about the origins of jackfruit, where it came from and how it got to Brazil, why it's seen as a problem species, a Plantae non gratae, an unwelcome plant. And, I also wonder whether you agree with those who say it's a problem.
I don't. We don't. We don't agree it's a problem. We understand that this abundance, we as apes, we work always on the opposite of abundance. How would you use it?
Scarcity.
Scarcity. We work on scarcity. Gold is valued because it's scarce. And then jackfruit has a lot of fruits, and then it's not valued because it's abundant. So we have to learn to value abundance. And that's, for me, one of the biggest conceptual values that this tree gives us. Another way of working within the territory, within the city, and in the world.
I would add that there are a lot of prejudices related to the slavery that was the first objective from colonization from Portuguese. It was for poor and Black people. So it's not chic. It's not considered. It's not valued.
Even in India, as it's so abundant, it's not valued for kings. I mean, we as a species, we always value what's scarce, and then we have with the jackfruit a chance to invert this relation. And actually, jackfruit comes from Southern Asia, where the Portuguese got in contact with it when they started the movement to India, and the biggest, it was the first global commerce movement, in a big scale.
17th century.
Yeah.
16th, yes.
Century.
Before, yes.
And then they got to know jackfruit there.
Yeah, 17th.
And 100 years after they arrived there, they were losing ground for British and Dutch enterprises and governments. So they were basically almost being expelled from India at that moment. And they had Brazil as a colony, immense, with a different culture. That in India they had commerce, and here they had extractivism. And they said, well, we can take jackfruit, we can take the especiarias, all the
pepper, cinnamon,
the goods that they would export to Europe,
and sugar,
and plant in Brazil.
Sugar was the most.
It was already the value of economy in Brazil at that moment, no? Mm-hmm. And then they said we can plant these valuable goods as commodities to sell in Europe, but in the same ships they brought cinnamon and pepper, they brought mangoes and jackfruits. Why? There's no reason why they would put such an effort to bring those plants that could not be exported to Europe afterwards. It was to feed the labor force, the labor that would run these projects, which was enslaved. All the economy of Portugal and Brazil was based on enslaved labor. So this was the kind of the fuel of the operation. So it came to Brazil without any explanation, because the Portuguese at that moment were really basic on their relation with this. They were losing ground in India because British and Dutch were much more organized. They were not as...
the Companhia das Índias.
But the things that they brought jackfruit to Brazil without saying anything, just like eat it, just like giving to animals.
Because all the animals could be fed with jackfruit.
Yeah, horses and cattle and everybody eat jackfruit too.
Yeah.
So in the end, we didn't receive here. It came amputated of this cultural experience they had in India to eat jackfruit in all the ways you can imaginably use it. Because when humans arrived in Southern Asia, jackfruit was there already. So all the culture, human culture in that area learned how to eat it ripe, unripe, seasoned, raw, cooked, anyway. They can eat jackfruit in any ways.
I want to follow your question. Why is considered a problem here? Because actually it is considered a problem by the academy, and there were many projects and sources to finance the eradication of the jackfruit, to kill those trees, how to kill those trees in a cheaper way. And this is it's another part on another size of this question that I think it's important to discuss.
Yeah, so it arrived in Brazil as enslaved labor food without any culture attached to it. So people didn't understand they could eat it unripe, cooking it like breadfruit. Our work is to show people there are other ways to eat jackfruit that can actually profit from the whole production of a tree. Because when it's mature, you cannot eat 1, 2, 3, 5 jackfruits, and then say, okay, I cannot eat one more jackfruit in my life, and then you have still 30 jackfruits on the tree.
Well, you speak of 1,001 possibilities for the fruit, and we'll come back to that. I just wanted to pick up something that Marisa just spoke to about the invasive nature of jackfruit, because I've had a bit of an exploration with the plant online, and there seems to be there's very limited studies that have been done on how invasive it is, and unsurprisingly, when you actually drill down into these things, because you often find it in what they call secondary forest, and secondary forest is already disturbed forest. And like so many of these, what I call Plantae non gratae, they actually seem to actually come bearing gifts if you can change your lens a little bit. And there's one study from Brazil I found that says, and I quote, "We find no evidence that the presence of jackfruits negatively affects the arrival and initial recruitment of native plant species in the study area." And even suggestions that, like guava,
that's Gomez, isn't it?
Yeah, like guava, which I think went the other way to Africa and is regarded as an invasive there, it forms what we call a very good nurse species. It builds soil and actually aids forest regeneration. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that before you come on to the 1,001 possibilities that you advocate now for the kind of the culinary side of jackfruit, whether it's ripe or unripe.
Yeah, I think this, Pete, occurred because it wasn't considered the history involved in this occupation. How the slice history. It's pedaço, como é que recorte? It's a picture of a small time. A forest has a long time to develop. So it doesn't take into account the entire previous history.
Well, basically, I think we have this species that was brought here, and it's very potent, and it's been occupying basically spaces in the forest where the forest was demolished, was invaded by us.
Yeah.
To do coffee, to do charcoal, to do whatever we wanted,
Yes.
in putting forest down and bringing enslaved people to work on these projects of
And eat jackfruit.
silviculture projects. And then we abandoned them and we changed into this protected areas philosophy.
Exactly.
And then we stopped eating jackfruit. So when people say, oh, jackfruit is an exotic species that invades the forest, the rainforest, because it doesn't have a species that acts as a ecological equilibrium balance to bring balance to this existence in the forest. I say, yes, we do have a species that brings balance to jackfruit in the forest. It's us.
Yeah.
We have to eat it.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. We try to create a culture of whole use of jackfruit, so we can eat them all,
including the seeds.
Yeah, including the seeds. So because basically jackfruit spreads into the forest on the areas where the forest was depleted, and then it has a big, we say, pressão de propágulo.
Pressure.
Yeah,
big pressure.
Propágulo pressure. So it's a lot of viable seeds on the ground, and it starts creating on the ground a lot of little jackfruit trees, and then it really dominates. But if we eat it, that's why we brought it here in first place. We just have to do what we said we wanted to do: eat jackfruit.
Yeah. Because
this is our ecological role.
Exactly. And I know one of the terms that's used over here in the UK, I've heard, is that it's kind of the equivalent of like a vegetable meat. The texture is very like meat, and I know on your website, obviously, these days, we will link that in the show notes, and people can go and have a look and use Google Translate or whatever, and they can really kind of like get the information out. But you've got so many recipes with jackfruit. It's wonderful, and perhaps you can talk a bit more about that, as well as whether, in the spirit of permaculture, this is one of the ways we can work with these plantae non gratae, is to respectfully get permacultural yields from them, whether there are other yields, because I believe that the wood is very termite resistant, which is valuable in a
very much
in a tropical climate, but also you can make furniture and even musical instruments from the wood.
Definitely. There are an incredible amount of uses we can do with jackfruit. And there are many videos in the internet showing that. Okay. And basically to eat, when you start looking into the unripe jackfruit, the particular condition of unripe jackfruit is that it doesn't smell and it doesn't have any taste. It's really like it's a neutral. It's like the white board for a painter.
Yeah.
For the cook. So you can work with the texture, and you can work with this
savor.
The sabor, nossa.
Savor.
The
taste.
The taste and the flavor.
The taste. Mm-hmm. You can work with the taste and the texture, and you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's like kind of a multi character.
And
on the kitchen,
we have made further researches on the nutritional values,
which are very good.
Chemical values. We also have found that it's a sacred tree in the Black
Afro-Brazilian religion. When they came from Africa to Brazil, brought as slaves, they had this entity that was connected with a tree in Africa. When they arrived here, this tree didn't exist in America. Today it's planted to make wood, but at that time there was no cedro africano.
Anyhow,
Mogno africano, perdão, Mogno africano.
Yeah.
And then they had to choose another tree to represent that spiritual entity, and they chose jackfruit. So, and jackfruit actually, in my view, is much more connected with the character, of the characteristics of this entity than the original one, because it's a very powerful figure.
It's a beautiful mythology about women's ancestor memory. It's a female character, and it's not only this entity you telling is just one people, but it also spread around all the African diaspora in Brazil, because it's very much related to their food, to their it's a basic food for them until today. So we have given 25 tons from 2021 to now. We have given 25 donated 25 tons of jackfruit that would be thrown as garbage.
Yeah.
By buildings, houses, condominiums, and
schools, universities. Everybody has jackfruits around, not only in the forest, but in the green areas within the city. We have a plentiful quantity of jackfruits.
Last week, 500 kilos.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, they're big fruits, but that's a lot of food. And obviously there's a lot of people who are struggling for food security these days all over the world. Do you feel, the $1 million question, do you feel that your work is starting to change the narrative in there in Brazil?
Sure.
Definitely. Last year, because it's in the summertime here in Brazil that jackfruit yields, no? And then we put a structure in a very traditional park in Rio, and we donated more than 5 tons. Every Saturday would be there with green jackfruit, with unripe jackfruit. And in the beginning, everybody would say, no, but I want mature jackfruit. I don't want unripe jackfruit. And in the end, everybody was already taking and knowing how to process it and how to profit from it in the kitchen, not as a sweet fruit, but as to eat with rice and beans, which is the basic Brazilian
another lesson
dish
that the tree and the jackfruit gives is collectivity. Yeah. You don't eat a jackfruit alone. Okay, I have a shirt saying, you don't eat a jackfruit alone. And so a collectivity is something that we need to survive.
It teaches us a lot of things.
Each time we donate, we create a group. So we have massive, now I'm dealing with massive groups sharing recipes and sharing experience and sharing knowledge. And it's been 11 years since we started this work.
That's lovely. I mean, so the name of your institute, which I'm hopefully going to say relatively correctly, Mão na Jaca.
Mão na Jaca.
It, as I understand it, it translates as hand in the jackfruit, but it should be hands. Everybody hands on, but lots of people hands on. Yeah.
And the expression of hands on also, it's let's hands on something. It's because we have a saying, a very bad saying in Brazil that is pé na jaca, which is foot.
Meter o pé na jaca, put your foot on the jackfruit.
Yes.
And it originally had nothing to do with jackfruit. It was a jaca, not jaca, which is a big nest to carry goods on the horse. And the guy would drink and they would go up on the horse and put everything down because he was drunk. So meteu o pé no jacá. put the foot on the Jaca, not on the Jaca.
Yeah.
And then, but jackfruit is always the villain, you know. It's always
jackfruit is being the villain and being the guilty. It's always
so
there.
we put Mão na Jaca to make kind of a word game with this pé na Jaca. It's Mão na Jaca because with the hand you construct.
If you are drunk,
you
feel too much of something bad, you do with the pé na Jaca. So Mão na Jaca is saying to inverse the look, the way you look to this tree, and because the tree is considered violent, is considered
invasive, violent, aggressive.
So the aggressive, and so this is not qualities of a tree; it's a quality of men, of humans,
animals,
and you is a way of prejudice against.
And one interesting thing about this concept of finding jackfruit as an invasive exotic species is that when I was reading about jackfruit in Southern Asia, there was a sentence from this guy Hack, which is a very good, has a very good book on jackfruit, and he says we could not find the exact origin of the fruit of the tree, and we cannot find jackfruit in the wild. So it's a fruit that even there, when it's supposedly native, it's already completely combined with human presence. So if it's not exactly native there, it cannot be exactly invasive or exotic here, because the relation of jackfruit with humans is the reality we have with this plant, with this species. Humans and jackfruits go together.
Okay, and the law here still is to exterminate, to eradicate jackfruit trees. And this is spread all over the country, and this is terrible. And we did a research about with 400 people to ask, how do you deal, what do you think about jackfruit? And we have a cloud of words, and the main word was childhood. So exotic is something exotic, out of your eyes, your perception. But if it comes from your childhood, it's not a stranger, okay?
Yeah.
So it should be naturalized. It should be the Brazilian jackfruit.
No, the use of exotic as a definition is really mean, because when you say to an ape exotic, you're talking about the ape group, the neighboring ape group, which is basically the biggest enemy they have. So when you say exotic, you're saying a threat. And it's really like not reasonable, because it's not threatening anybody. It's just growing and giving fruits. You just have to eat it.
Contributing to
and making good soil. My dream, we have a condominium here. It's a building, and it has a yard that goes hundreds of meters into the mountain behind, and has really a big dominance of jackfruits. My dream there is to kind of manipulate a bit this exceeding presence of jackfruits there, to use the wood, and then to make a nursery for native plants within the jackfruit invasion, you know?
Yeah.
So it would reverse. It would be nurse of the natives.
We are literally out of time, but that's a wonderful dream to end.
I have one dream here that I want to put.
Go on then.
Is to put in the school, the merenda escolar, a law that allows it to be those jackfruits from the city to feed children in public schools. And I have it published in the
we have already the law as a project. We have to be voted.
Your work is incredible. I salute it from the highest point. And yeah, we will have you on again, perhaps. I'd love to talk more than we have time for now, but it's such a wonderful story, and I hope this inspires many people, both, not just in Brazil, perhaps, but all around the world as my audience grows. But thank you both so much for being prepared to be in conversation, and your English is fab. Thank you so much for engaging in English rather than your native language. And yeah, no, yeah, we could talk a lot more about this, but it's such an inspiring
Thank you.
story.
Yeah, we
and
are very thankful.
We will put your website, which I recommend people to explore using Google Translate if it's if they're not Portuguese speakers. But yeah, no, thank you so much. And yeah, no, very inspiring story. Very inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye
so
bye.
much for your work too. It's very inspiring for us too.
Obrigado.
We're connecting through Jackfruit.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Bye bye.
And thank you to Jackfruit too, of course. Bye.
Yes. Ciao, ciao.